always forget that. Welcome, my name is Maggie Gallagher. I'm the Executive Director of the Benedict XVI Institute for Sacred Music and Divine Worship. We were founded by Archbishop Salvatore J. Cordileone of San Francisco with a twin mission of helping to further more beautiful and reverent liturgy and to energize a Catholic culture of the arts. We are so happy to have you here and also to have with us really a wonderful company of actors and a beautiful play by Charles Gallagher. Charles lives in the Bay Area, the Greater Bay Area, as we say. He hails from County Donegal originally, as all of us Gallaghers do, although my people came over around the 1890s. So, and he was born there. He's written 15 plays, and he specializes in writing plays about Catholic heroes who stand up under pressure for the truth and for the faith. Ruth Palaleo is our director. She is herself a playwright and is the director of, hello Ruth, there she is, of Current Theatrics, among other groups. And it was great. When I asked her, we have done some stage readings before in a much more amateur fashion. And when I asked her if she would be willing to take this on, she told me that she had just done some coursework in how to make Zoom readings effective theatrically. So we will benefit from her talent in that department as well. The play is called Malcolm Muggeridge and Mother Teresa. Charles wanted to make sure that I let you know that it will be being performed in New York City by the Fellowship of Christian Arts. I forget the name, sorry, Charles, but it's a really wonderful company that has specialized in doing productions of C.S. Lewis and is now broadening out. So I'm gonna go up to New York and see that when I get a chance. This play reading is going to be from the second act. So the running of the play time is about 40 minutes. And then afterwards, we'll have some wonderful conversation. I talked back with we're hoping Charles Gallagher was here, but he's having some Zoom issues. So we do not know if we'll have the playwright, but we'll certainly have Ruth and her wonderful company of actors. There you go, Ruth. Do you want to say a few words of welcome, Ruth?
Thank you so much, Maggie. Just simply to say how delighted I am to see everyone and that we do have a playwright in the house. Very exciting for everyone, a little nervous making for me. And he is an attendee at the moment. And then once the show is over, we'll bring him in as a panelist. And so he'll join those of the cast who can stay and your good self. And we'll open it up. I know some of the cast have some really good Mother Teresa stories, so I'm hoping those will come out. And that's all. Thank you and God bless.
Thank you. And in a minute, Ruth is going to kick me down to being an attendee so I don't bother you and distract from the actual players. But I'd like to be, and usually we have Archbishop Cordileone to lead us in prayer, but I thought at least on Saint Mother Teresa's feast day, we could say a Hail Mary together and ask for her blessings and prayers for the company, for the playwright Charles Gallagher and his family, and for all of you who are part of the Benedict XVI family. We appreciate you so much. So in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Saint Mother Teresa, pray for us. See you at the end of the show.
Thank you so much, Maggie.
Ruth, you need to transfer me. I can't do it. I'm not the host anymore.
I think that I have just done that. There
Good.
we go. All right, let me close the chat. And actors, cameras off in places, please. Actors, mics on, please. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Benedict XVI Institute's reading of Act 2 of Malcolm and Teresa by Gallagher. Act 2, Scene 1, begins in a park in London, May 1968, a few days after the first interview with Mother Teresa. Malcolm and Mother Teresa are walking side by side.
I must confess, I'm not at ease on television. I get nervous.
Sorry. No one noticed.
What did you think?
I think you showed me up. In all candor, I was quite taken by your words.
I wonder what I said.
You kept me awake half the night.
Praying?
Thinking what one woman can do. One ordinary woman. Can I say ordinary?
Is that better than plain?
What she does is not plain.
What he does.
Quite exceptional, really.
If it brings people closer to God, what you do is quite exceptional.
By mere chance.
Is that what you believe?
I have to. Otherwise, I should be obliged to go down a path I don't wish to go.
I'm sure you have your reasons.
The 7 deadly sins, and the present state of the church. I don't wish to offend you. The church is going in the very direction I just came from.
The mission has not changed. The mission, the salvation of souls.
Men have changed.
Maybe so. These trials will purify the church. It will emerge more beautiful and true.
But look around. Civilization is on the verge of collapse. Only one force can stop it. Only one.
The church?
Right. What happens? They come to terms with the world. They look to political causes and political parties. It won't work. It just won't work.
Then, sir, you need to come into the church. Fight that battle from the inside.
No, no, no. That bell does not ring for me. Besides, I cannot do what you do.
I cannot do what you do.
Right.
You can do what you can do. I can do what I do. Maybe together we can do something beautiful for God.
Something beautiful for God. They did just that. In a rather unlikely venue, television. Despite all the doubts and misgivings, the show did go on. Then something odd happened. The mail arrived. At first, a few letters. Then more and more and still more, to the surprise of everyone concerned. Well, maybe not everyone.
Now the scene moves to the studios of the BBC London. Malcolm and Kitty, his wife, enter. They each carry a box of letters.
Can you believe it? The greatest response ever.
What are they saying now, the BBC bigwigs?
In a state of shock.
So they should.
To think they were about to cancel the program.
Wait till I see your assistant producer. I'll give him a piece of my mind.
A list of the donors. £5, 10, 50, 75.
This woman speaks to me like no one ever has, except this token. Oh, a money order for £5.
We never asked for money.
Ask not, and you shall receive.
Look at this. £100.
Amazing, isn't it? How this little nun touched so many people.
Odd thing is, she was not particularly clever or gifted in the art of conversation. Just had this Christian love about her. Like the poor are a gift, not a burden.
I talked to Frank Longford this morning.
What's he up to?
He saw the interview.
And
He was really impressed.
by Mother Teresa.
And his once agnostic friend,
Once.
Frank Longford, says,
Frank Longford says, or Kitty Muggeridge says.
all right, I started the conversation.
I thought so.
Frank agreed to be a sponsor if you should ever.
If I should ever enter the Catholic Church, which I am not about to do.
In the event you do, Frank is quite willing to.
In the event I do, I will ring Frank Longford. All right.
Thank you.
All I did was interview a nun. I didn't fall off a horse on the road to Damascus.
Right. Just another interview. I think I need a scissors.
Oh, in the desk over there.
Kitty exits with the package. Malcolm opens another letter, and Terry Shaler enters. He carries a sack of letters. He peers furtively about and goes to Malcolm.
Terry, my boy.
Shh,
What?
keep it down.
In the doghouse, eh?
The afternoon post. More to come.
Marvelous. Just marvelous, eh?
They want to do a repeat on Sunday. All right?
Of course. I want to do another interview.
When?
Very soon. In Calcutta.
Why Calcutta? So far away. Why not bring her here again?
You want to discuss the matter with Kitty.
I'll see what I can do.
Thank you.
Pretend you didn't see me, all right? I wasn't here.
Mum's the word.
Shaler tries to tiptoe off. Kitty intercepts him.
Mr. Shaler,
Yes,
a quiet word, please.
Mrs. Muggeridge, what a surprise.
Do you recall a conversation about
About a television program?
and a little-known nun from India? How could she possibly hold their attention? Sound familiar?
I must say, we were taken aback.
You were.
I would call it a learning experience.
Could I make a suggestion?
Of course.
Tell the people upstairs,
The programs.
tell them to come down from their ivory tower and go out among the common folk. Maybe have a chat, a cup of tea. We're not a bad lot. Most of us speak English. I'll let you in on a little secret. Some of us are Christian. Pass the word, Christian.
Right. Christian.
Believe it or not, we are interested in the little old nuns from India who pick up people off the street, despite the fact that India has such a huge problem with that little known nun could not possibly hold the attention of viewers in the United Kingdom. You got that?
Got it. Got it. I'll relay your message to the production team upstairs.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Act 2, Scene 2, takes us to the Circular Road, Calcutta, the second interview with Mother Teresa. The interview takes place in a stark, dimly lit room underneath a sign reading BBC One, Calcutta, 21 August, 1969. Malcolm is skimming through a folder as Yvette, the makeup lady, applies some finishing touches.
Cameras broadcasting in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
This is my second visit to Calcutta, my first to the House of the Dying. I am grateful to Mother Teresa for allowing our cameras into this home where she cares for the destitute. Mother Teresa, after I met you in London, the only thing I wanted to do was to come and see your work here. Now that I've seen it, it's a shining light. Behind the work, there's something else, which is your faith. Tell me about that.
Faith is a gift from God. Our work to be fruitful has to be built on faith.
How are people to have this faith, which is so lacking in the world today?
It is lacking because of so much selfishness. Faith to be true has to give love. Love and faith go together.
Many of us, including myself, have lost our way. How do you help them?
By getting in touch with the people. For in people they will find God.
You mean the road to God is through our fellow human beings?
Because we cannot see Christ, we cannot express our love for him, but our neighbor we can always see.
Is there a danger that serving our fellow man becomes an end in itself?
There is always the danger we may become only social workers or do the work for the sake of the work.
That's what I was thinking of. Isn't that a danger?
It is a danger if we forget to whom we are doing it. Our works are an expression of our love for Christ.
Let us go back to the beginning, when you first started out.
Yes,
When did you first feel you had a vocation?
on a train to Darjeeling, I heard the call to follow him into the slums to serve the poor.
You accepted what the inner voice asked of you.
I knew it was his will.
To leave the convent, you had to get permission.
I wrote to the Holy Father.
What did you say to the Pope?
I told him I had a vocation, that God was calling me to serve the poor in the slums. By return post, I had the answer. I could go out and be an unenclosed nun.
That's how it all began.
Yes,
Fine. Excuse me, Mr. Muggeridge.
What?
A problem with the lighting?
Fix it then.
Not that simple. The room is too dark.
Have a go, old chum. If it doesn't work, we can move outside.
It won't work.
Then we'll start all over again.
We're getting all kinds of shadows, dark shadows.
Terry, have a go.
Have a go, he says. Have a go. The award for the darkest film ever made goes to former BB assistant producer Terry Schaller, now driving a lorry somewhere in the Midlands.
So, it all begins. A woman walks out of a convent into the streets of Calcutta, the teeming streets of Calcutta. Did she have money? Did she have a place to go? Did she knock on doors?
Yes,
And then,
I went into the homes to see the children.
okay,
Then I started a school in one of the houses.
in the slums.
Yes, with 5 children.
It seems extraordinary to me that one person could just walk out and tackle this thing.
I was sure that it was he, not I. If the work was mine, it would die with me. If it was his work, it would live on and on.
How much money did you have?
5 rupees.
5 rupees. 1 for each child.
We didn't ask for money. It just came. As people came to know what we were doing, they brought things and money.
Voluntary contributions.
Yes, it was all divine providence.
You got your school going. Then you took on something else.
The sick and the destitute.
How did that come about?
In 1952, we opened a home for the dying.
These are the people who were abandoned.
Yes, on the street.
Do you remember the first person you took in?
An elderly woman. I picked her up myself. She had been half eaten by rats and ants. I took her to the hospital, but they wouldn't do anything for her. I refused to move until they accepted her. And then I went to the city and asked for a place. Because I saw other people were dying on the streets, they gave me this place here.
Which you called the Home for the Dying.
Yes.
What exactly do you do for these people?
Try to make them feel wanted, to let them know that they are children of God, that we have people here who really love them, at least for the few hours they have to live.
You only want people who cannot get in anywhere else, is that right?
The home is meant only for street cases and when no hospital wants them.
In the last interview, you said you had a lot of children. Do you ever turn any of them away?
No, we always have one more bed for one more child.
How many children do you have now?
5,000.
5,000.
5,000, yes.
Some people say there are too many children in India and in the world. I'm thinking of one friend in particular.
Ask your friend if there are too many flowers in the world. God always provides. He provides for the flowers and the birds and every living creature. These children are his life. There can never be enough.
Maybe so. But 20th century man believes there must be a collective solution. How would you say that all the people Mother Teresa saves is just a flea bite? There must be a better way of doing things.
I do not agree with the big way of doing things. To us, what matters is the individual. Every person is Christ. For me, every child is Christ.
Every child.
It doesn't matter who they are or what they look like, whether their feet are mangled or they have stumps instead of hands. They are his feet and his stumps. For did he not say, whosoever receives one such child for my sake receives me?
Since you opened, how many people have you saved?
We have picked up over 23,000.
From the streets.
Yes.
Incredible. I want you to go back. I want you to go back to something you said just a minute ago. You said you do not agree with the big way of doing things. What matters is the individual.
Every person is Christ for us, and every child.
Every child.
Yes.
Then you said, it doesn't matter who they are or what they look like.
Whether their feet are mangled or they have stumps instead of hands.
For did he not say,
whosoever receives
one such child
one such child for
for
my sake
receives me?
receives me.
Act 2, Scene 3, brings us into the Muggeridge flat, Manchester, a few days after the second interview. Kitty stands at the table, holding a tablecloth. Terry Shaler stands nearby. He has a package which contains a tape of the interview.
Malcolm said a strange light entered the room.
The room did light up, yes.
But
But a miracle? That's going too far.
I don't know much about your business. Seems to me if the room is too dark.
The film will not come out.
But it did come out.
I know. I was shocked, totally shocked.
What about the cameraman?
Billy?
Yes.
Billy said he used a different film, one he hadn't used before.
And it lights up a dark room. Find out who makes that film, and I'd like to invest my entire savings account.
Here's the tape. All yours, free of charge.
Do me a favor. Send a copy to Frank Longford.
If I can have the address.
Frank is a devout Catholic. I'm sure he'd love to see it.
By the way, I found a book on Mrs. Webb
Oh, which one?
about the Fabian Society. Very famous lady. Did you know that?
It had occurred to me, yes.
In the book, it says, how can I put this politely?
Polite, impolite, doesn't matter. When it comes to Aunt Beau, I've heard everything.
It says after Mr. M returned from Moscow, there was tension.
Right.
The relationship was strained.
To put it mildly.
Mrs. Webb refused to see him and they never met again.
Wrong. They did meet one time.
After he came back from Russia?
Yes, the summer of 1933.
1933, the Muggeridge flat in Manchester. Malcolm is at the table, writing on a pad. Auntie Beau knocks on the door, and Malcolm answers.
Aunt Beau, do come in.
A short visit, Malcolm. Sydney has a meeting at the Workmen's Club, and I thought it was time for a chat.
Splendid. And please take a seat.
And Kitty?
On holiday.
In Switzerland?
Blackpool. Dropped the children off with Mrs. Craig. A cup of tea?
No, I would love a smoke though.
Sorry.
You quit?
For the third time in the past month, yes.
And the alcohol?
I'm afraid I've had a relapse. I'm a teetotaler.
You have changed.
In certain matters, yes.
Blackpool, eh?
Yes, Blackpool.
Oh. Close to home, of course.
Yes, very close. Just up the road, actually.
Right. Up the road. Nice strand, they say, and not my cup of tea, of course. I suppose you know why I'm here.
I think I do.
Then let me make it clear. Your wife is keen on the idea, and so is my husband.
So am I.
Let's get to it. Sydney believes you are misinformed.
If he is referring to...
He is referring to the charge of forced labor.
Charge. Common knowledge. Everyone in Russia knows there is forced labor.
Not in my circle.
Who exactly?
A very reliable source. He went into one of those labor camps and spoke to the workers. And do you know what he found?
Everyone was happy, well-fed, and drove a Ford motor car?
Oh, they laughed at your accusations, Malcolm.
They recruit entire villages at the point of a bayonet.
To do what?
To cut timber, dig canals, without pay and a starvation diet. Believe whatever you want.
I believe people died, yes.
They did.
Due to disease.
Oh, come now.
You know who says that? Walter Durnty, a top reporter for the New York Times, as you well know.
A pawn of the regime.
You know what Sydney says? Even if there is starvation, Soviet ideas will triumph in the end.
Soviet ideas caused this famine.
Socialism?
Yes, and Joseph Stalin.
I will not have you malign a good friend.
Aunt Bo, you want the truth. Your good friend is a brutal dictator. He is selling the grain the people need. He is selling the grain while people starve.
I won't listen to this anymore. This is horrid.
Horrid, but true.
If millions are dying, as you say, why is there not an uproar, an international outcry?
I don't know.
Well, there you have it.
Aunt Bo, listen to me. You mean well. I know you mean well. I would hate to think of you upholding something this evil. You would hate it if you knew its real character. You'd be appalled.
And what about the embassies?
What embassies?
In Moscow. How many ambassadors are there? 50, 60, 100? Don't you think they would protest if things are this bad?
They should have.
But they didn't.
I know they didn't.
Why, Malcolm? Why? Why are they silent? The embassies, the diplomats, the journalists.
I don't know.
What?
I told you, I don't know.
The whole world sees one thing. You see another. One man against the world, Malcolm. Are they wrong? Is everyone wrong? Everyone I respect and admire. Shaw, Huxley, Sinclair, and the 21 dignitaries who signed that petition. 21 of the most reputable men in this country and in America. Are they all wrong? Have they all been deceived? And what about the Foreign Office, the Cabinet, our own government ministers? Have they all somehow been duped? You can't stand alone, Malcolm. You stand terribly, terribly alone. And I am sorry. I am truly very sorry. And I don't know what else to say.
There is one man you can write to. Rosen, Dr. Rosen. He came to the flat in Moscow. Kitty was there. She can tell you all. She can tell you all about it.
Act 2, Scene 4 takes us to the Muggeridge flat in Moscow, 1933. Kitty is covering the furniture with white sheets and blankets. A knock at the door.
Who is it? Who is there?
This is Muggeridge.
Yes.
Can I come in, please?
A man enters carrying a satchel. He is somewhat agitated. This is Dr. Rosen.
Is your husband home?
Who are you, sir?
Please don't be alarmed. I can explain.
Who are you and what are you doing here?
Are you leaving Moscow?
For some time being, yes. We'll be back. Now, will you tell me what this is all about?
Is there anyone here?
I am not going to answer that. You, sir, can go. You have
One
some
question.
nerve coming in here.
One question.
Then you'll go?
If you want me to.
I do.
If I were to tell you that people are dying in Russia, dying of hunger, what would you do?
Notify the Politburo.
They know.
What?
They already know.
Mr. Whoever you are you an American? Whoever you are, this is a young country with a new economy. There's such a thing as growing pains.
If the pains get worse and worse,
What are you saying?
people in this country are starving. The government is doing nothing, absolutely nothing.
That is ridiculous.
I can get proof.
You want my husband to investigate.
I want your husband to write, to tell the world.
Come back some other time.
No, no, no. This cannot wait. It is a matter of life and death. Millions will die this winter. Unless the government takes action, millions will die.
Give me your name and address.
My name is Dr. Rosen.
Your address?
My name is Dr. Rosen. I'm with the American Jewish Committee in Moscow.
What are American Jews doing in Moscow?
We found the promised land.
But no milk and honey. Is that it?
Not with this government.
If my husband takes up your cause, and there's no guarantee that he will, assuming he does.
Here, give him these newspaper clippings.
Where are they from?
The Ukraine.
Oh, Malcolm can't read this language.
I can get a translator.
Tell me, what do you hope to accomplish?
If your husband will expose these conditions, it may force the regime to act and bring in Western aid to famished areas.
In other words, embarrass the government.
This is my telephone number. I use the code name Luke. If anyone else answers, hang up.
Dr. Rosen,
Uh-huh.
of all the reporters here, why Malcolm Muggeridge? Why not contact an American reporter?
Remember the code name Luke. If anyone else answers, hang up. Tell your husband to be careful. Things are not what they seem. People are not what they seem.
Act 2, Scene 5 returns us to a London street in 1969. Malcolm and Mother Teresa are walking.
The West is finished, all washed up. They have no spiritual base.
Is that what you learned in Russia?
What I learned in Russia is that we're bad. What a mess, a big mess.
You include yourself?
Yes, but I know it. Any scheme to improve mankind is bound to fail unless we adhere to some external standard.
A moral standard?
A fixed moral standard. This thing called nature is damaged.
Doesn't everyone know that?
No. They think human nature can be perfected. Educate a man, he'll become good. It's a huge fallacy.
Do you see the hand of God in any of this?
Not where I have been.
In what you have done?
Yes, I saw the hand of God on the streets of Calcutta. A few little nuns who were a living witness to the truth. Nuns who love God and love neighbor. That's your secret, isn't it?
My secret is very simple. I pray.
I'm afraid I don't. Asking for favors is somehow just...
Praying is not asking. Prayer is putting oneself in his hands to listen to his voice.
Some of us don't hear that voice. And the way the church is going now...
But it's there. That voice is there in the depths of our heart. Malcolm, you never told me what happened in Ukraine. You don't have to tell me now, but I did wonder.
They laid out a special train. Plenty of food and vodka. Eat, drink, and be merry. And we did. Still, there was something odd about the trip, something eerie. No people. The stations were empty, every station. Not a soul to be seen. Except one. A cluster of peasants huddled together on the platform, ragged, dirty, shivering. One of the reporters tossed a chicken leg out the window. They pounced on it, all of them. Pounced on that one piece of chicken, tearing it to bits. As the train pulled away, he stood there. A boy, 8, maybe 10, stood there, dirty, ragged, and with that terrible innocence. That terrible innocence that words cannot describe. Help us, please. Anyone, someone help. Except he never said a word, just stood there, still, deathly still. An apparition that has stayed with me ever since. Like a stigmata. And I'll never forget it until the day I die.
2. Scene 6. Brings us to the Muggeridge flat in Manchester, 1969. Kitty is leafing through a batch of letters. Alec Vidler stands nearby, a cup of tea in hand.
They're coming here, the good sisters. Did you know that?
London?
Yes, found a place in Southall.
Malcolm's idea, by any chance?
Strictly Mother Teresa's. Grand opening takes place on Monday.
I presume you're going.
Wouldn't miss it for all the world. The Cardinal is going to be there, a concelebrated Mass.
You say that with a good deal of enthusiasm.
Why not? I attended a Mass in France. So did Malcolm. I must say, I rather liked the experience.
Did Malcolm feel the same way?
I don't know. Contrary to popular opinion, husbands don't always confide in their wives.
Even on religion?
Especially on religion.
Funny thing about Malcolm. He has this hostility to Christianity, and then he goes to church.
In that case, he needs to go to church.
Don't you see the contradiction?
No. I see a man searching for some kind of meaning in his life, hasn't found it, okay? Now that's no reason to quit the search.
Shaler enters the flat.
Hope you don't mind the intrusion. I need to see Mr. M.
You'll have to wait. He's across the street at Downey's.
I'll go get him.
Sounds urgent.
We can't do the program.
Sunday night?
No, the Mother Teresa program. When she opens the new chapel. We were going to do a telecast.
What happened?
Electricians strike.
No lights at all?
None. Total blackout.
Well, won't be the first blackout in London.
I can't quite remember that far back.
Well, I do, and it wasn't that far back.
Right. Mum told me all about it. Blue Cliffs of Dover and all that. Or was that me granny?
The White Cliffs of Dover.
Alec Vidler returns with Malcolm from Downey's.
Malcolm, did you hear?
Electrician strike. Yes, know all about it.
Any chance she might postpone?
No, I shan't ask her to.
Sorry, we have to pull out.
Don't worry, dear boy. That will not deter Mother Teresa. She's been known to shine a light in some very dark places.
A letter from Calcutta.
Thank you.
Anyone for tea?
No, thank you. I'm off.
Me too.
Thanks for coming, chaps. Alec, I'll see you on Thursday.
Right. Bring that book on St. Paul, will you?
If I can find it, yes.
If you can't, I'll pick one up in the library.
Before I go, do you mind telling me what he said?
What who said?
Dostoevsky.
Read the book.
I don't have the time.
Take it up with the Reverend. He's the scholar.
The great Russian was of the opinion that if men abandon God, they will lead society down the road to ruin, even with the best intentions.
Well, what exactly did he say?
Doing good without God is diabolical.
Oh, that is absurd. Give me one example of where doing good without God is supposedly diabolical.
Have you heard of Saint Augustine? He had this notion about human nature, our nature, yours and mine, called original sin. What Augustine said is this:
Dear Malcolm, I am leaving for Paris tomorrow and then for Venezuela on Sunday. Please pray for me.
Pray for you.
I think I understand you better now. You are like Nicodemus, and I am sure the answer is still the same. Unless you become a little child, you will understand everything if only you become a little child in God's hands.
Your longing for God is so deep, yet he keeps himself away from you.
I know what you feel, a terrible longing and a dark emptiness.
A terrible longing.
And a dark emptiness.
And a dark emptiness.
Yes, I do know how you feel.
The personal love Christ has for you is infinite.
The difficulty you have with the church is finite. Again, you will understand everything, everything if only you become a little child in his hands.
Kitty, would you ring Frank Longford?
Kitty enters, links arms with Malcolm, and the two Muggridges quietly leave the flat. 15 years later, Malcolm and Kitty will be received into the Catholic Church.
Malcolm's account of famine in the Ukraine was later confirmed by Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev. In the 2-year period, 1932 and 33, it is estimated that between 7 and 10 million people died of starvation.
Mother Teresa's religious order continues to the present day. There are now over 800 houses that serve the poor and the dying in 130 nations around the world. She was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1979 and canonized in 2016.
Curtain. The end.
Can you turn on my video?
Absolutely. Let me just get you in there, Maggie. I have to go.
Okay, there we go. Now I can do it.
And I'm
Wow. Thanks to you all. That was just a wonderful treat. As the Palo Alto Daily News reviewer said of the play when it was premiered, it is a play that really asks you to think. So I really love that. Ruth, do you want to try to find the playwright and bring him in?
I
with
did
us?
actually bring him into the panel. Let me see why.
Where is he?
That hasn't. There I go again. I'll try again.
Let's put it on speaker view and see if we can pull him out.
There he is. Promote to panelist, allowed to talk.
Excellent.
There.
Charles, are you there? Can you say hello?
He's coming in.
Oh, he's coming in.
There he is.
I don't see him.
He's still muted. Let
Oh,
me.
unmute. So, Ruth, while we get the playwright, maybe you can tell us a little about your experience in putting this on as a Zoom play. What was that like for you? What stands out for you?
Well, so the thing is, because Malcolm Muggeridge was such and actually Mother Teresa as well, they were such well-known personalities. Once he kind of exposed the world to her, it began to adapt really well to Zoom, because there was something about, and James could actually speak more to this, James Murphy, who played Malcolm Muggeridge. Gosh, I prefer to talk, I'll let the actors talk more about the process, but basically, there was something about their television personalities-ish. And actually Kitty, like the in-joke is Kitty wrote the book. The Terry Shaler is like, oh, I found a book on your auntie. Kitty wrote the book. So they were all, what's the expression nowadays? They were all influencers of their day.
Yeah, it was a small, everyone knew each other there in that literary, political, celebrity world. Is it James, Malcolm? Do you want to
Yes.
talk a little bit about your experience with this role?
Well, when Ruth first contacted me about playing the part, the two things that jumped out at me were, first of all, the reason I got into performing in the beginning and into acting was through Monty Python, and in particular, The Life of Brian. And if you're familiar with the furore that was caused at the time of the film being released, John Cleese and Michael Palin actually were interviewed regarding the controversy, and Malcolm Muggeridge was one of the people on the panel, and he became known as quite a curmudgeon and a contrarian after that. So that was my first introduction to Malcolm. And then in terms of Mother Teresa, my family has always had great belief in Mother Teresa, and I suppose a sense of connection to her. And it's something I can remember since I was a child. Even when she was here in Dublin giving a speech at one point, we went to see her, and I can just picture her in the distance, just the small little patch of white and blue, very, very far away. But it was something that made me really want to get involved and play a part.
I should mention that several of our company are in Ireland, where it is, I think, approaching 3 a.m. So we're really grateful for you. And if they sound a little punch drunk, it's because it's the middle of the night there. But what a wonderful performance. Charles, are you able to speak? Can you say hello? I don't see you, but I see your name. Speak again.
Can you hear me? You can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you. We can't see you, but we can hear you.
Okay.
So how long has it been since you've seen your own work on Malcolm and Mother Teresa?
Let me see. I think the last play I saw in Los Angeles. They did it down there. A lot of our plays here in San Jose go down to Los Angeles. And so they put it on there at Miles Memorial Playhouse in Santa Monica.
That's wonderful. Yes, Quo Vadis Theater Company, which Charles founded. And I understand that you're about to retire from that venture and hopefully launch your plays in other ways.
COVID put us out of business,
Yeah.
And an awful lot of the community theaters, or what you would call in Ireland amateur theaters, or community theaters here, an awful lot of them just have closed up shop because of COVID.
Yeah.
Some of them tried Zoom, but it didn't seem to work for them.
Well, I think it is a special challenge. Do you want to tell us a little bit about how you came to write this play?
Yeah, there was a show called Firing Line in this country, and it was run by a Catholic named William Buckley. And he interviewed Malcolm Muggeridge. And I had lived in London as an 18-year-old, and he wrote for some paper. I didn't pay much interest, or I didn't pay much heed to what he wrote. I thought he was a bit cynical, you know. But the man that came across in the William Buckley show, he had a powerful story to tell. And first of all, I have to confess my ignorance. And I'd also like to ask you folks, I knew nothing about famine in Ukraine. I know about famine in Ireland, but Ukraine, and I'm wondering how many of you folks have heard about that famine in Ukraine back in the
I don't know if people want to chime in the chat box, but I'll just say that yes.
Okay.
And particularly, I knew about it as an example of the New York Times Pulitzer Prize winning. I don't know if you can call it a lie, but an error of gigantic proportions for which it was rewarded and defended for generations. And to me, I mean, there's many things about this play, Charles, that are wonderful and interesting. But this problem of how do you know what is true when you're learning secondhand? And then when you see it firsthand and you do know, how do you stand on the truth when, you know, for Malcolm Muggeridge, it almost ended his career. It challenged his family relationships. And basically, when he came back and he was married into an elite British literary and political circles. And when he told them what was happening and wrote about what was happening, they said, no, it can't be true because A, Joe Stalin wouldn't do anything like that. And B, the New York Times says it's not true. So you must be wrong. That there's something very contemporary about that epistemological crisis and the subsequent crisis of courage.
Yeah, the New York Times reporter who wrote that got a Nobel Peace Prize. You know, he said some people died of disease and denied that the Soviet authorities had anything to do with it. But Malcolm, what the extraordinary thing was, and you asked how I got interested, actually two people. There was a reporter from Wales, but he wasn't well known, named Gareth Thomas, who wrote about it, and Muggridge, and two of them. He sent messages via diplomatic pouch to the Guardian, and the rest of the Western world just didn't want to hear it, you know. And you have to bear at that time, the socialism was the wave of the future, and you didn't want somebody disclosing that there was some evil folks around who would be willing to starve others. And Stalin did sell that grain in Ukraine. And the people starved to death. It's estimated between 7 and 10 million people. Anyway, I thought, hey, this is a good story. I kind of look for stories of a person going against the tide. Miguel Pro in Mexico was a padre who went door to door, providing the sacraments of the church. And that was another one that did reasonably well. So I thought it was a good story, and it got a good reception in Los Angeles. Got 1 or 2 bad reviews. I mean, a lot depends on the person writing about it, and but it got some good reviews, good enough that it went to some major theaters. You know. So, in answer to your question, hey, one man against the world tends to make a good story and can, I suppose, make a good play, but that depends on the audience.
Are you still writing, Charles? Are you working on anything new?
I'm losing it now. The words don't come up like they used to.
Well, it's quite a body of work. I have enjoyed reading a number of yours, and I should say they're extremely suitable if you know Catholic schools in particular, because they're manageable casts, or for community theaters, or really consider starting your own play reading group. I used to do that in New York City. I would have people over for dinner and we would read plays, and it's really kind of fun. So I really think there's something about theater, which is an underutilized resource for Catholics in particular, for energizing a culture of storytellers. And in part, it's because it's so immediate, and in part, it's because you can do it at different levels. I mean, you can't really, if you make your own films and you do them in a very amateur way, you don't really have anything to watch. But if you read plays together, even if it's not the same as a professional, you're engaged in the material in a really wonderful way. Ruth, I see you nodding your head. You're a playwright too. What are you working on now before we go back to the rest of the cast?
Actually, I'm working on a couple of comic books, graphic novels.
Oh.
Yeah, the one I'm nearly finishing up is about the punk rock scene in San Francisco and in Las Vegas. Yeah, and like some slightly supernatural happenings happening in those.
Okay.
Yeah.
You mentioned, Ruth, that some of the cast have, and James mentioned his relationship with Mother Teresa. Is there anyone else who you want to put on the spot and ask to tell their Mother Teresa story on her feast day?
Who will I choose? Well, actually, I did our Dr. Rosen, who is Sean Doak, and he's in Las Vegas. And I just wanted to call this out, Maggie. I just realized looking at my cast, no one in my cast is British. Not a single person in my cast is British. Oh dear. Oh, well, that's good for,
It's all right. The Irish got a chance to play their oppressors. I enjoyed that.
But so Sean is in Vegas here with me, and he finds Mother Teresa quite an inspiration. So I'll tag him. Tag, you're it, Sean.
Tag, I'm it. Well, I'll say one thing about Mother Teresa is I think about superheroes. And I painted her at one point. I just felt compelled. Based on what she was able to accomplish with minimal resources and, assistance, that just really amazed me. How can you not be touched spiritually by that? And given all of her challenges and all the speaking engagements that she had, and how she was able to just touch so many lives, that she influenced others to do the same. Right? And it was the story of the cameraman who wanted to film her, and she was like, well, drop your camera and roll up your sleeves and jump in. That's what I need. I need you to help. Right? But I'm just very fascinated with her life and her history.
How was it to play Mother Teresa? Do you want to tell us about that? Not you, Sean, but our Christine.
When I was first asked, a bit intimidating. How do you fit in the big sandals, small and special woman? And as I kind of got into her spirit, what sat with me was not so much her holiness or her piety, but she was a person who plummeted the depths of her humanity. And she used that to connect with every living person that she encountered. And that by far, I think, was itself in its way, very holy. She was a person of great love. She was a person of profound joy. But if you ever encountered her, you would never know what she was experiencing internally. And if you read her published letters, come into the light, it's remarkable to think that she lived in darkness for at least 50 years, never experiencing a connection to God. Yet she was committed
to serving. One thing that inspired me was a quote she said, "If I ever become a saint, I will be surely one of darkness. I will continuously be absent from heaven to light the light of those in darkness on earth."
It's beautiful. And I know it was very challenging for many of us when her spiritual dryness was revealed in a woman who was such an incarnation of Christian love. And I think it somewhat challenges our idea of what piety is. To see Christ in the face of every human being is to plumb the depths of humanity, right? And to be motivated as she was by love is also to experience the divine in some way, I think. And she, I hesitate, her writings, obviously, people don't live in one thing continuously. So she experienced a direct calling from God. So she was more in touch with the divine than I've ever been, actually. God has never directly spoken to me in that clear way. But she kept the faith and she fought the good fight. I think it was Hildegard von Bingen, or maybe it was St. Teresa of Avila, all these great women saints, who said, don't love the consolations, love the God who offers you the consolations. And I guess that's what the good Lord wanted us to understand with St. Mother Teresa. I want to, if people have questions in the audience, I'm going to try to let you talk, but if not, you can ask things in the chat. And I find that I have trouble finding everyone's hands when there's too many people. So if you have any questions, yes, Reverend Professor Vidler, Father.
Thank you. A little comment, something that's striking me now. The last words of Teresa to Malcolm, a terrible longing and a dark emptiness. She says she knows what's going on inside him. And it's striking me that this is the same thing that was going on inside in her for the previous 50 years. And I'm just wondering, is that the connection there? That she's actually speaking to him what in fact had been going on in her.
I think that may be for Charles, since the ending of the play was his crafting.
Yeah, I actually only learned of her dry period in which she felt she was no longer in contact with God. I only learned of that after this play. Now, you asked me, Ruth, is there anything I would change in the play? Well, I think there's two things, but I would certainly bring a scene in that reflects that. So in answer to Father's question, no, I did not know about this crisis of faith, if it reached that level, which I don't think it did, but I didn't know about it. But I think it's something that would be brought in the play and probably will be if it does go to New York. And let me see, what's the other thing that I wanted to bring in? Oh, I'm not sure at the very end where Malcolm says, would you bring Frank Longford? I think I would bring Frank Longford into a scene, maybe just by telephone, because Frank Longford really was called Lord Longford, and he was an influence on Malcolm. Frank was a Catholic and was trying for some years to get Malcolm to convert, and Malcolm just avoided him, So I think I'd bring him in. So there are two changes I would make with regards. Ruth asked me about that.
Well, Charles, though, I'm assuming that you put that right at the end, even though you didn't know about that, because you knew that this is something, in some sense, every human being faces.
Yeah,
Dorothy Day's The Long Loneliness, right?
I'm inclined to agree with the the person who asked the questions that she felt it at that time, and so what she was feeling was what he was feeling, but I didn't know that, you know.
Yeah. Ruth, go ahead.
I think one of the coolest things about this is I was aware because I had also researched the production history of this show for a pending article about I guess maybe it's going to morph, but for it's for Catholic literary arts, and so I was aware that when Charles had done this particular version of the play, he had not read the letters yet from Mother Teresa, and yet what the amazing thing is the script is still alive, right, Charles? And so the actors knew about those letters, and so that's what they found in your script. Even
Right.
if, yeah, it was just incredible because they both went right there. And we had a lot of like, in terms of technically, because in the script, it says that they say those lines exactly together. And Christine and James and I played in like hours, really, just how to do it so that they could still be heard clearly on Zoom. But what we got from the Zoom was the sense of them speaking in utter unison, speaking to each other's hearts. And hopefully I think they nailed that. I felt like they nailed that.
Well, does anyone else want to, we've got a few more minutes. Kitty, do you want to tell us a little bit about, she's quite an interesting character, the wife.
Yes, she is. You know, as I've kind of done a little bit of my research as well, kind of getting into the story and the whole period, there wasn't so much to be found out in the interwebs about Kitty, but it was definitely interesting to go back and just watch any of the things that you know, were provided in old videos and interviews of Malcolm. So I had hoped that there would have been more about her and her life, even recordings or video, but even very few photos. So I'm not sure if I just wasn't searching up the right keywords or not, but it seems as though, you know, there's always the woman behind the man, that maybe this was her role, and she was just fine with that. It was definitely fun to.
I don't know if in that time period too, whether, well, of course, Auntie Bo was a rather well-known figure, so I don't know if she preferred not to follow in Auntie Bo's footsteps or not. Auntie Bo, what was it like to play the woman who would not believe her own, what would it be, nephew, I guess, nephew-in-law? Oops, you're muted. Auntie Bo, you're muted.
Thank you. Sorry. I have a snoring dog next to me. So
oh, show us the dog now. I always like the puppy.
No, everybody loves puppies. She's a rabble rouser. I mean, and it was just so interesting to see how like her life had morphed, and I didn't realize that she was the one that coined the term collective bargaining agreement. So just, you know, this influence that she had, and then, you know, thinking that people in her inner circle were all amazing when they weren't. Like, it was very interesting, and I definitely would watch something based on her for hours. But even just everybody's parts have been kind of, you know, it's been nice to morph and see how they all kind of played in with each other. So
Ruth, you said you have a question. Thank you. Yeah, very much. Ruth, you have a question for Charles about Terry Shaler. You're muted. You're muted.
Oh.
There you go.
Okay, when we were researching Terry Shaler, we were, you know, as we searched for all the characters, and I didn't find, I mean, I found loads of BBC producers, and I even found the cameraman and a picture of the cameraman who I think his name actually was William. But so is Terry Charles?
No, Terry was a real person, but that wasn't his name. Okay.
Oh.
And sometimes when you're dealing with actual persons, I got an awful lot of my information from the BBC archives on who was who. But if you're going to mention someone's actual name in a play, it's always best to see if you can get in touch with that person. And if you can, if I can, my rule is if I can't, then I'm going to use another name.
Yeah, especially if they're not public figures, right? So that's a hot tip for playwrights there, and why you could find no information. But you'll have to talk to him offline about who the model for Terry Shaler was, and maybe learn some more afterwards.
Sure, and I don't know if he's still alive. When I wrote it. So.
Well, Terry Shaler, the actor who plays Terry Shaler, I think you're the only one who hasn't told us a few words. You want to tell us about what you got from this experience?
Oh, there's so much. I mean, it's and my impression of Terry Shaler is that he is, and I apologize to Charles and to everybody if I'm putting words in your mouth, but he was an unformed man. He was represented a secular man, and didn't know anything about moral goods or anything. He just worked on timelines and deadlines. But what had a curiosity and a thirst for it. That's why he leads with the Reverend Vidler, because he was interested in it, about having something more. And I really like that quote that Charles included from Dostoevsky's about doing good without God is diabolical. I think that's the opposite of Sartre saying hell is other people, and Mother Teresa kind of encompasses that whole thing. Actually, no, God is other people. Service is of other people is service to God.
Right. Yeah, there was an assistant producer, and he was younger, and somewhat naive, but yeah, he was secular minded, and not unusual to have some people who work in TV to be secular minded. So he did fit that pattern. Now, whether he was changed as time went on by Malcolm is another story. I don't know.
Mm.
And also he's concerned about ratings. That's the thing about TV. I mean, I think he said that we should have gone with the preacher from Carolina.
With Billy Graham, yes.
Billy Graham, and so that had to do with ratings, and I think he was one of the people who agreed. I don't think he picked Mother Teresa, but he did agree to putting her on, and then was disappointed that she didn't talk about the population in India. So yeah, that he would be a very modern type of man.
That's really interesting. Well, I just want to thank Charles Gallagher for being with us, for writing this wonderful play, which will be performed in New York City as soon as we're done with COVID by the Fellowship of Performing Arts. That's Max McLean's company, if I'm not mistaken. Isn't that right, Charles? They do wonderful theatrical work.
Yeah, they do. They do a lot of biographical works. They've done Luther, but then they've done Man for All Seasons, Thomas More, and now they're doing a one-man show about Lewis, C.J. Lewis.
Yeah, I think that's their second Lewis. They did Screw Tape. I saw them do Screw Tape Letters in Washington, D.C. about 10 years ago. And I brought my 14-year-old son, who said it was pretty interesting, which is high praise from a 14-year-old boy you've dragged to a theater that he wouldn't have chosen himself. But so a few shout outs. Thank you, Ruth Palaleo. I think I'm hopeful maybe we'll do some more. It's a round of applause for everyone. That I know that you out on the audience can't applaud, but I'll stay a minute and look at all the comments in the chat box. And you've made a lot of people very happy tonight, so thank you for that. Just a few reminders. On September 25th, we will pray with Archbishop Cordileone, a litany of reparations for abuses against the Most Blessed Sacrament. And you can register for that and also get a printed copy of the prayer book at eucharisticrenaissance.com. On September 29th, we're having our retreat for artists and art lovers. And Dana Gioia, the American poet, former head of the National Endowment for the Arts, and a novelist, an Anglo-Irish novelist, Kevin Turley, who writes a lot for EWTN and National Catholic Register on the arts, will be joining us. On October 4th, the Transitus of St. Francis, we're going to have a Zoom reveal of the painting that the Benedict XVI Institute commissioned, the patron saints of the homeless, which will be set up as a shrine in the back of St. Mary's Cathedral on November 6th, when Frank LaRocca's Requiem Mass for the Homeless will be celebrated by Archbishop Cordileone. But I was at Bernadette Carstensen is the painter. She's a San Francisco native, very gifted, and she was showing me the sketches, and I just can't wait to see the center. It's all the patron saints for the homeless, with St. Francis kneeling before the Blessed Mother with Jesus on her lap, and she's holding her own sorrowful heart, and he's offering the city of San Francisco. So October 4th. And then on Halloween, we don't have the date, but we're going to do vampire novels, Catholic vampire novels, and crime novels, and Gothic fiction generally. We've got 3 or 4 Catholic novelists. So good things coming up. Thank you for joining us. Thanks to all of you actors, and particularly those who have stayed up to the middle of the night to offer us your talents for the greater glory of God. Thank you, and God bless. See you next time, I hope. Take care.
If possible, I have actually a letter here.
Oh, yeah?
If you wouldn't mind me reading just the last bit of it.
Sure.
So we're very lucky in this house to have a letter from Mother Teresa. And there's just a line here that I think is quite beautiful. She says, "May you always recognize the hand of God in all that happens to you, to take what he gives and give what he takes with a smile, for that is true holiness."
All right. Ruth, thank you. You're the host, so you have to take us out when it's time.
Well, everyone, take good care.
Goodbye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.